meteorologist Chase Jones.
Well, it was a pretty good sunset as you made your way out there dealing with some of these light breezy conditions, but we're looking out to the west for some of these dust storm conditions, so I hope you tied things down because you still have a couple more hours before it starts to make its way in now. We're sort of taking this one a little serious because it's some high wind that we're continuously dealing with, and it will continue to be here throughout the rest of next week as well, so we're on the lookout for some of these high wind events along with those fire weather watches. Temperatures over the last 24 hours, despite being comfortably cool, relatively dry all the way down into those mid-40s, a good run into those upper 80s, and we're cooling off pretty quickly underneath these cool skies despite those southerly winds. Now, by tomorrow around lunchtime, they're going to be turning out of the west about 30 miles per hour. Expected to see gusts somewhere around 60 miles per hour by the weekend. 66 in San Angelo, everybody else in a combination of 70s and 60s across the entire region. 67 in Sterling City, 67 down there in Junction, but it's looking like 3 degrees across the entire Concho Valley, if not 5 if you want to count Ozona, all the way to Robert Lee. So not too bad as we make our way into this evening, but the southerly flow keeping things relatively dry. We hopefully wanted to see more humidity as we made our way into this evening. Now, it has risen significantly. Dew points are in those teens and those 20s. Humidity indices also in those teens and those 20s. So they've doubled over the last couple hours, but we want to see more moisture because we're dealing with these drought conditions. Now, tomorrow we'll get a good idea of the drought monitor before we go into Thursday, but when we get a look at the moisture tracker, we're going to keep our eye on the concentrations or the instability off towards East Texas while we deal with some of these high winds and these dusty conditions. Now, we're going to see several rounds of dust storms make their way through. Low pressure systems are mostly hanging out to the central portion of the United States, while high pressure lingers around Florida and the Bermuda region. Now, that's going to keep a lot of these storms primarily to the north. You're going to see a good example of it as we continue to see these storms rolling through the Concho Valley. Now, we keep our eye on the panhandle to get a good idea of how strong these winds are. Anywhere we sort of see a shade of pink to yellow, that's going to be those higher winds at the surface, somewhere around 100 miles per hour. As we make our way closer towards the rest of the week, the third week of March, we're talking with Haley about how fast we're getting through the rest of this month. We're going to continue to see some of these stronger storms really just linger around the panhandle, so high wind events continuously throughout the rest of this week and next week. Water vapor imagery showing you the dry air pushing over the south coast while we keep our eye on the moisture making its way around sort of Las Vegas, Arizona, and including the big race this weekend. We're trying to get a good idea of some of the windier conditions on that sort of track cam, but nothing yet. They're expected to see about 3 feet of snow from this storm. Severe weather outlook is Arizona, and we take you down to the surface. Things have not moved a whole lot onshore from the last 24 hours, but we're seeing a whole lot of those fire weather warnings, so it's going to take everyone to contain the flame as we make our way into these windy conditions. So we're going to watch this low pressure system barrel over the Rocky Mountains and produce some pretty high winds by Friday, and that includes tomorrow as well. So quick series of storms going to make their way through by tomorrow with high winds, then by Friday with some high winds. Look how strong that storm is getting. Every storm chaser is headed off towards the northeast. Now, we talk about these high winds constantly because here's a good example of what we're going to see by Wednesday around lunchtime. They are going to pick up, and it's going to be prominent. Then as quickly as it showed up, it will die by Wednesday night, and by Thursday things will warm up near those 90s. So tonight all the way back down into those 50s, keeping our eye on that southerly flow and those dry conditions. Then tomorrow, kind of your last opportunity, so prepare for some of those dusty conditions. Remember to take your time so first responders can get to and from those emergencies. Things will calm down as we make our way closer towards Thursday. We're battling back and forth with some of this cold weather as it continues to make its way onshore. It's going to push us all the way down into those 70s by Saturday. Then we're on the warm-up with those windy conditions as we push all the way back up into those 80s, but those overnight lows also up and down as they go from those 50s up to those 60s and back down to those 40s. Stay tuned. Welcome to the break. You're watching KSAN News.